Welcome back to Inside Carolina Live. Tommy Ashley, Joey Powell. Beautiful day here in the Bowls lot. We're getting ready for Minnesota, which will kick off in about 2 hours here. We'll hand it over to the Tar Heel Radio Network in about an hour. But Tommy, we have got a guy who basically is now, I'm assuming, like assistant prime minister or associate prime minister of Canada by now, just based on the level of success he had in his career. You might remember him from chucking the pill around at Keenan Stadium quite a bit, Mr. Darian Durant. Darian, how are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, we certainly appreciate it. And, we've got the pleasure of watching a guy like Drake Maye right now, under center for North Carolina. And there's a lot of similarities in you guys because Drake's put up such gaudy numbers. And all of a sudden you start looking and then people see Darian Durant's name come back. You start seeing, oh man, I forgot Darian was a gamer. And then you go back and look at some of the in game, single game, and single season stats that you put up. And now all of a sudden, what is old is new again. So I'm glad we got to talk to you today. And I'm going to start right there at the quarterback spot. As a QB yourself, how do you feel watching Drake Maye do what he's doing at 20 years old?
It's amazing to watch. I mean, the way these offenses are so open and spread out in today's game, to see him execute at such a high level. And not only that, he's making NFL type throws. They throw a lot of vertical concepts, and he's hitting tight ends down the seam. He's connecting with the deep ball at a high rate. So I'm very impressed watching him play.
Is there something about seeing this wide open, as you put it, and seeing the college spread now that makes Darian wish he could go back about 15, 18 years and jump back on the field because this would have been perfect for your skill set.
Absolutely. I mean, these guys they run a up tempo style offense. They're getting plays off in 15, 20 seconds, and they're taking a lot of shots. And I would definitely have loved to play in that type of system. Not only that, shorter quarterbacks are getting more of a look now. So that would have been good as well. But no, just to see how the game has evolved, the passing game, and how it's such a huge part of college football today. It's just been amazing watching the growth of the offenses.
Darian, we were talking a little earlier about your career at North Carolina, and we'll get into that maybe in another show. But I wanted to ask you something you just mentioned. There is the shorter quarterback aspect. Obviously, Drake Maye 6'5", can
Yeah.
see over the line, but you've got guys like Kyler Murray and other smaller guys, and you were one of those guys when you played at North Carolina. What
Mhm.
explain to folks the difficulty and the difficulty of not being so tall and the benefit that a guy like Drake has to be able to see over 6'5", 6'6" tackles and guards and defensive
Yeah.
linemen. I mean, just sort of speak to that aspect of it because I don't think people understand. I've never understood how you guys see
I
who
mean,
you're throwing to.
yeah, for sure. It's true. There's definitely a benefit for being a 6'4", 6'5" guy, being able to see behind the offensive linemen who are getting bigger every year as well. More so for us shorter guys, it's all about anticipation. I think that we can kind of lose track of some defenses that may shift post snap. You may lose track of where safety is. So your pre-snap read as a shorter quarterback is so key in being able to anticipate what the defense is doing. So for Drake and some of these other taller guys, it's definitely a benefit. But I think for us shorter guys, we had to be more on point. We couldn't be late with our throws. We had to make sure our anticipation was there because we may lose track of what the defense is doing, post snap.
When you're back there, sort of walk people. I asked Drake about this when we interviewed him for a special show earlier, I guess over the summer. But can you sort of walk us through what it's like with a quarterback walking up to the line uh, and surveying? Tell us what happens there between end of play and the start of the next play. You obviously had a lot of success at North Carolina doing a lot of different things, but sort of give our listeners an idea of what that's actually like.
Yeah, so it's a lot that comes with it. First and foremost, you have to relay the play to your guys in the huddle or at the line of scrimmage. Communication is the most important thing. So, on your side of things, just making sure the O line, receivers, and backs they know their responsibilities. That's first and foremost. And then, the first thing any coach will tell you, as you get to the line of scrimmage, is know where your hots are. Be able to protect yourself. Know if you have to get rid of the ball quickly, or if may have a little time in the pocket to make a decision. So, and then in today's game, a lot more. You have a lot of run pass option with the way these defenses are playing. If the safety's low, then it's a run play call, but the quarterback and receiver have to be on the same page, and you can just flick it out there to the receiver. So there's a lot that goes on, in between plays. And the main thing, and I'll tell any of the younger guys I may work with nowadays, is know your hots, know where the free guy could be on the defense, because you always want to protect yourself. You don't want to take unnecessary hits.
So we're talking with Darian Durant, former UNC quarterback. Guy had a long career in the CFL, very successful career at that. Darian, I want to ask you, what do you think about this current edition of the Tar Heels? We talked a little bit about Drake Maye, but in the first two games this season, you've seen some running back play, and I'd like to ask you just how do you see that as you're watching now?
I mean, it's great to see. I mean, British Brooks has been amazing against South Carolina, and then Amarian Hampton, what he did against App State was, it's any quarterback's friend to be able to hand the ball off, and a running back eats up chunks of yards and move the ball down the field for you. So, I would like to see the passing game get going a little bit more. I think when Nate McCullum gets back, he's another weapon that can get even with reverses, or he's been so dynamic. Me being in the Atlanta area, I've been able to see him at Georgia Tech and just see how explosive he was as a player. So I think once he gets in the mix, they have a lot more potential in the passing game.
Yeah, these running backs definitely seem like something your old coach John Bunning would have loved, because I know he loved to run some downhill football. As you're sitting here watching the Tar Heel team play, obviously they're without their two leading receivers from last year. They lost Josh Downs and Antoine Green to the pros. You went through some of that when you were playing, where you'd have guys that you relied on, and all of a sudden they're gone. How do you go about indoctrinating guys like Nate McCullum, like some of the younger guys on the Tar Heel offense right now? How do you go about bringing them up to speed, but also recognizing, like, hey, the season's already a quarter of the way over. We got to get moving.
Right. I think it just comes with easy completions, as as quarterbacks like to say. If we can get some easy completions, coaches can get a game plan going to get some of these guys involved, especially the younger guys, get them involved early, make them feel a part of the game, and get these easy completions going. I think you can integrate, these guys in the offense that way. And if you're running the ball well, like we have been, and the running backs are eating up chunks of yards, then it makes the passing game that much easier for the quarterback and the offense. So it all starts up front. The line is doing such a good job in the run game and pass game. So get that run game going, and they can open up some things for the younger guys down the field.
Let me ask you a similar question. And obviously, Tez Walker's out for the foreseeable future, maybe ever. Nate McCullum should be back today against Minnesota. How important is chemistry with the guys you're throwing to? I've often wondered, watching quarterbacks, are you just throwing to an open jersey, or do you know that that's Nate McCullum out there, where you're throwing it? How big is the chemistry aspect that Drake's probably had some issues with that, given how this NCAA mess and injuries have played out?
Yeah. Chemistry is huge. I mean, you have to have trust in your guys. You have to have had those reps at practice. You have to build that sort of relationship, that trust factor. I remember myself when I played 11 years in Saskatchewan, and then I did my final year in Montreal. And once I switched teams, I was with a totally different group of receivers. Never worked with them a day in my life, so it was so hard trying to get them on my page, understand where I like for them to be with the spacing. And I mean, for Drake to go through, so many different receivers, it can get tough. But like I said, as long as the run game is doing great, once you can get predictable boxes by the defense, you see what they're doing, it opens things up, and now you can take advantage of some of those young guys' talents.
Let me ask you a question, a little bit of a fun question before Joey takes it back in the right direction. Running for a touchdown as a quarterback or dropping one in the bucket from 60 yards out?
No better feeling than dropping it in the bucket. I mean, that's a drill and practice for a reason, you know. To be able to hit a guy in stride, everything goes perfect with the play. Especially if you don't get touched as a QB, you can just follow through and just see it drop. That's the best feeling for sure.
And you're halfway down the field with two guns in the air by the time the guy catches and turns around. I
For
love it.
sure.
We're talking with Darian Durant, former UNC quarterback, longtime pro in the CFL, joining us today on Inside Carolina Live. Darian, I want to ask you. I'm sure you haven't watched a lot of Minnesota football, but what we're looking at is a team that prides themselves on defense. They're going to suffocate you a little bit. They held their last opponent, it was Eastern Michigan, to negative yards in the whole second half and only 6 points for the game. If you're, put on your OC hat for a little bit. If you're calling the game today, what kind of stuff are you looking for to try to take advantage of a team that prides himself on defense and a Drake Maye, quarterback in Drake Maye that really hasn't had to flex his muscle so much yet? How are you calling this game today?
Well, I'm first and foremost understanding that this is a Big Ten opponent. They play physical football. They pride themselves on physicality and being able to stop the run against some of the teams in that league and the conditions that they play in late in the season. So I'm thinking of spreading them out, spreading those guys out, getting a third and fourth DB in the game, and seeing if he can match up with some of my slot receivers. Besides Ohio, I'm sure there are some spread offenses in the Big Ten, but they're used to bad weather come late in the season. So these teams are built for their front seven, and sometimes they don't have enough depth in the secondary. So I would definitely spread them out, try to attack a third and fourth corner, maybe get a safety down in the coverage, and just make these guys cover and run with us the whole game.
One of the beautiful things that I think having success running the ball the first 2 weeks will do for North Carolina today is force that safety to come down into the box and may give Drake a chance to pick on some guys or find his huckleberry out there on the field. One of the things that's led to this success in running the ball is we found some dogs, I think, on North Carolina's offensive line. Specifically, some cut ups show one Willie Lampkin literally pancaking guys 15 yards into the end zone and down the field. I know as a quarterback, you love that kind of stuff. Probably only second to the way offensive linemen love that kind of stuff. What does it mean for a quarterback to have a guy who can jump in like that and simply ragdoll an opponent? And I'm assuming it may be a little tougher sledding today, but how do you get fired up when you see one of your guys doing that for you?
You really, really don't find too many linemen who are fired up like that. A lot of guys want to get back to the huddle and get the next play going. But as a quarterback, you love that energy. You know you have a guy that throughout the entire game, he's going to have your back. He's going to go the extra yard to, if that's pushing a back in the end zone or making a pancake block down the field. You love having those type of guys. Like I mentioned earlier, the offensive line has been opening up tremendous holes in the run game. And, even though this is a more physical team, I think that if you spread them out and get them to cover, now you open up some extra lanes inside where our offensive line can take advantage of, some guys not being in the box.
Darian, when you look at this North Carolina team, you mentioned Nate McCullum. We've already mentioned Tez Walker not out there. Who else can they do you think can step up for Drake? A lot of people, and this is another question too, sort of a part two there. A lot of people have talked about Drake doesn't have the numbers this year he has last year. I think he's a better quarterback because he's able to check at the line, he's able to change plays. But you can speak to that, but also speak to some other wide receivers that you think really need to up their game for this North Carolina passing attack to get in gear.
I mean, honestly, I think that the guys are there. I just think that in some instances, timing is off. From what I'm seeing, there may be some miscommunication down the field. I think the plays are there to be made, and like I said, when you add Nate McCullum into this group, a guy who can go in the slot, a guy who you can give reverses to, a guy who thrives in the screen game. I think that this can open up everything for the offense and allow some of those big plays to happen downfield. You look at even Sam Howell, when his top receivers left going into his last year. he had to kind of change his game and tone it down a little bit. And I think that made him more efficient as well. And, it has led to him being able to have some success in Washington now. So same with Drake. I think that, sometimes it's good to lose some of your big guns so you now can focus on some of the small things. And even if that's staying on the field on third down in some instances where you would take a shot down the field because a big play guy like Josh Downs is down there, you now take the easy throw and move the chains and stay on the field.
Darian Durant, one of the best quarterbacks in North Carolina history. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you for some North Carolina memories, Darian. I mentioned
Yes.
Oklahoma game. Just what do you remember the most about North Carolina, specific games, specific plays back at your time in Chapel Hill?
I mean, like you mentioned, the Oklahoma game, just the atmosphere, just going into that as a young guy, and then a couple weeks later going into Texas to play against those guys. I'm a freshman at the time and have no idea if I'm getting in the game or not, and then I get a chance to play. So those freshman year moments, I think the way we turned that season around, going on the road and beating Clemson, beating Florida State at home, some big wins, a big rivalry win against East Carolina at home. We had some fun times, and then that group we had with Julius Peppers and David Thornton and Ryan Sims. We had some of the legends on that team. So just being a young guy and then looking back and seeing that, man, Pep is a Hall of Famer now, and Sims first round. Sam Aiken played, how many years in the NFL? Just soaking it all up, being around so many of. You don't realize how talented they were and are until you look back on it. So my freshman year was great. I would love to forget my sophomore and junior year and then to cap it off with just getting to a bowl game our senior year and being able to establish the relationship with guys like Jesse Holley, Darius Bowman, Mike Mason, some of the guys that came in to kind of give us a spark, so to speak, in my last year. It was great to remember as well.
We're talking with Darian Durant, former UNC quarterback, UNC all-time quarterback. I guess when you look at his stats, his name's still all over that record book, especially from the quarterback position. Darian, last question before we let you get out of here, and we appreciate your time. Do you have a pick for us today? I mean, this is a weird game. Vegas likes the Tar Heels by about 7.5. But again, playing a team that North Carolina has never played before in the history of the program, playing a Big Ten team, you've got a game at home. The weather's nice, but it's just it's such a head scratcher. So I want to ask you, who are you picking, and give me some numbers.
I'm going with us for sure. I think we can wear them down a little bit. Them coming down south, up tempo offense. I think that it'll definitely be a slugfest in the trenches. I see it as being not a high scoring game, maybe 35-32, something close like that. That's what I see. I don't think that, I don't know if Minnesota's known to be an explosive offense or not, but I think we can put up some points. I think we can move the ball. I think they'll get their run game going, being that they're a physical team. But, in the end, I think that we can use home field. I think we can use the weather and our up-tempo offense to our advantage.
Well, who knows? Maybe having a former great such as yourself on the pregame show will help the Tar Heels' fortunes today. But regardless, Darian Durant, we appreciate it. We hope to talk to you sometime very soon, and we'll catch you down the road.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again.
Thanks, man.